This guy is Colton McCready. He is a newly retired former Special Forces soldier, returning to his hometown after many days on the endless plains. However, he's barely had a chance to decompress and chill upon returning home when he receives news from his sister that his niece has been kidnapped by a gang of thugs. The head honcho of this gang is none other than Old Man Garcia, the biggest meth kingpin in all of Mexico at the time. Power, status, along with wealth and fame, make him a man no one here dares to mess with. But the one and only Colton, alone, shows up at his base not long after. This guy is known for not being scared of any son of a bitch. Casually strolling into the elevator, he immediately uses a few of his martial arts moves to test his skills against the gangsters here. His slow footsteps step out into the hallway, his limbs moving like flowing clouds and water. The top fighters Old Man Garcia recruited from all over the criminal underworld are all taken down by him as lightly as a feather. With just a dagger, he can easily neutralize two guys holding heat with his god-tier speed. He slowly advances inside, where the big bosses are partying with beautiful women. But he doesn't give them a single moment of pleasure, directly going to take down each one. After showing them what a festival is, he grabs the leader by the collar, forcing him to lead him to find his niece and threatening him with a voice full of rage. "If my niece loses a single hair, I'll make you lose a tooth." Finally, he finds the little girl, handcuffed and in a state of fear, completely panicked. Upon seeing his niece, he immediately pulls the leader over and beats him to a pulp. His methods are incredibly brutal. Afterwards, he takes the key to unlock the number 8 handcuffs for his niece, and the two of them leave together, returning to their home in the remote countryside. His sister sees her daughter brought back and runs out joyfully to welcome them both. Right at this moment, the sister's scumbag boyfriend is also here. He's the type of guy you'd call a freeloader, so he stole a few kilos of meth from the kingpin, then did a runner, disappearing for a while. And that's precisely why the old man kidnapped little Haley, with the purpose of selling her to recoup the money from the goods he had stolen. Colton was about to punch this worthless stepfather, but held back out of respect for his sister. Knowing that the kingpin is an extremely brutal gangster, Colton immediately told the mother and daughter to go somewhere far away to take refuge, and to just forget about that scumbag husband of his sister's. Over at the base, the mafia boss is furious when he hears the news. He can't believe that some nobody would dare to storm his base, not only killing countless close henchmen and snatching his person, but also taking something incredibly important. It turns out that while Colton was taking the necklace with the key to unlock the handcuffs for his niece, he accidentally took their hard drive back with him. And on that hard drive was a lot of business information and evidence of crimes, as well as the organization's bank account passwords. Whoever has it in their hands is equivalent to getting their hands on the countless amounts of his dirty money hidden offshore. Mad with rage, he immediately has a henchman killed in front of everyone as a warning to them. A gentleman should not run away when his friends and brothers are in danger. The old man immediately calls the chief of police, his lapdog, and gives him the information. "That jerk stole my drugs, and that guy named Colton killed my people and stole my property. If you can't catch those two, I'll have you retired." Hearing this, the police officer could only lament. As soon as they heard from the boss, all the police immediately showed up at Colton's sister's house. He couldn't show his face, so he told his sister and niece to stay, while he would temporarily hide in the shed out back. The police chief, a man who puts responsibility first, immediately slapped the number 8 cuffs on that hateful stepfather's wrists. Then, he tried to question the mother and daughter about Colton's whereabouts with a face full of rage. "I'll ask one more time, where is that little brat hiding?" The sister tried to ignore him and talk nonsense, which made this guy furious, but he couldn't do anything. But the holy snitch had arrived. Her boyfriend in the car poked his head out to eavesdrop. Then he pointed out that the little brat was hiding in the shed. At this point, Colton already had a firearm in hand, just waiting for the cops to charge in so he could have a showdown with them. He's a special forces soldier. How could these local cops have fighting skills as high as his? Knowing that Old Man Garcia and his men would be here any minute, and not wanting to endanger his sister and niece, Colton had no choice but to jump on his iron horse. He revved the engine, shifted gears, and took off at a godlike speed. Then followed a fast and furious chase. Despite flooring the gas pedal, the protagonist's ancient clunker was somewhat at a disadvantage. The two cops, though a bit slower in pursuit, quickly got on his tail and repeatedly kissed the back of his car. Then, one of them used a gun to shoot out a tire, causing Colton to lose control and have to stop. Their car didn't slow down, but just lovingly rammed into his. With the extraordinary agility of a top-tier Special Forces soldier, Colton managed to jump out and escape in a heart-pounding moment. On the other side, The Kingpin Garcia had also brought countless hardcore henchmen to check on Colton's health. The police chief turned pale seeing him and quickly assured him, "In just a few more minutes, my two subordinates will bring that little brat's corpse right back." The Kingpin knew the protagonist wasn't just tough, but on another level. So he immediately ordered his two right-hand men to go provide backup. The drug-addicted stepfather also apologized to the boss for accidentally doing his drugs without paying. The boss, being a charitable person, didn't hold a grudge and immediately gifted him a copper candy right between his eyes, officially ending his role right here. Back on the other side, the two useless cops were sweating buckets looking for the protagonist, but still found no trace of him. Suddenly, he rushed out, snatched a gun, and took one of them down. However, he was restrained from behind by the other one. Just then, the two high-ranking assassins also arrived. Seeing the three buddies fooling around, they opened fire, but ended up shooting a cop on their own side. Thanks to this, the protagonist was able to escape. Afterwards, Colton provided cover fire, saved the remaining cop, and quickly took cover behind a tree. The assassin nicknamed Truck Monster said they only wanted the hard drive. Colton, hearing this, didn't understand at first, then suddenly remembered taking the necklace when he rescued his niece. He pulled the necklace out from his pocket and sure enough, there was the hard drive. However, he couldn't care less. Knowing his ammo was running low, Colton used the tactic of flanking from behind a cop. Left alone and exposed, the cop was given a copper candy by the assassins. Thanks to his VIP Pro flanking ability, Colton finally took down one assassin, then threw his gun away and left. The truck monster chased after him and was met with a furious dragon kick. The two of them crashed into each other like real men, both highly skilled in martial arts, very evenly matched. He seemed to have quick reflexes with some cat-like moves, attacking very ferociously. However, feeling he couldn't win, he pulled out his belt to use as a weapon to make it a proper fight. Colton grabbed the belt and threw him to the ground, followed by a shadowless kick right to the mouth, making him spit out a mouthful of red syrup. Afterwards, Colton rushed in to choke the life out of the scoundrel so he could reunite with his brother in the Western Paradise. The boss on the other side called on the radio but got no response from his men, feeling something was wrong. Losing the hard drive was something that could bankrupt him. He immediately sent two more subordinates with heavy weapons to hunt the protagonist. On his way back, Colton found an AK-47 and immediately left. However, just as he came out from the hillside, the other two had arrived. They rushed towards Colton like moths to a flame. One guy poked his head out with a gun, intending to give him a copper candy, but Colton closed his eyes to aim, and one bullet hit its mark. Then he flew over the car's roof, narrowly escaping with his life. The other one, not knowing fear, immediately chased him to the bitter end. Colton wall jumped onto the car's hood and then used his strength to kick in the entire windshield. After that, he shot him painfully in the hand. He forced him to say what was on the hard drive. Fearing he would meet his maker, the guy confessed before even being beaten, saying that inside it contained the secret information of the organization's offshore bank account passwords. Immediately, the protagonist showed no mercy to the evil man, sending him to the 9 Springs with one shot. Old Man Garcia had lost more of his close henchmen. The Kingpin and the police chief were utterly terrified of Colton's power. At this point, through his sister and the old cop, he finally learned that he was a high-level special forces soldier in the US military, specializing in assassination missions and even having the guts to punch his superior so hard in the mouth that he had to live on porridge. Hearing this, the boss started blaming the police chief for not warning him beforehand about the protagonist's god-tier skills. This guy was also helpless, saying, "You better worry about saving your own damn life." Seeing things had gone too far, the scummy old man threatened, "I'll have someone pay a visit to your darling son." However, if the police chief feared his threat one part, he feared the protagonist 10 parts. He immediately left, abandoning the brutal scene here. After dealing with the hunting dogs, and rushed back to rescue his sister and niece. Arriving home, he hid behind the bushes to avoid detection, then used his agility to silently jump out and attack a guard. Inside the house, the old man, observing through the window, discovered his men lying on the cold ground. Feeling the constant lurking danger, he immediately took the sister and her daughter hostage and uttered a threat. "You little brat, if you don't come out and surrender, I'll shoot your 2 most beloved girls to pieces." The protagonist, worried for his family's lives, had no choice but to show himself. He dropped his gun, pretending to surrender, but was actually looking for a chance to counterattack these guys. Seeing this, the boss got straight to the point. "What I want is the hard drive. Hand it over now for a lenient sentence." He knew that even if he gave it to them, they would kill all three of them anyway. So, Colton approached to make the delivery. Just as the old man's henchman was about to reach into his pocket to get the hard drive, he suddenly unleashed his long-hidden brute force, throwing a punch and quickly shooting down the guy behind who was threatening the two women. Then, quick as a flash, he ran into the house with them. Perhaps thanks to the protagonist's main character aura, even with a rain of bullets firing at him, he remained completely unharmed. And so, a terrifying gunfight erupted, bullets flying everywhere but hitting no one. His sister also grabbed a gun that was already in the house, loaded it, and joined the gunfight against the mafia. Colton and his sister attacked from the windows, while they took cover behind the cars outside. The two sides were locked in an extremely fierce stalemate, ammunition exploding continuously, but still, no one was injured. The reason the boss couldn't just bomb or burn the house down was because the protagonist still had his hard drive. Acting recklessly would also mean destroying his important hard drive. Therefore, he immediately sent two henchmen to flank through the back door for a surprise attack. Colton realized this. He began to pick a good position and waited for them. With the superb shooting skills trained in a military environment, his firepower quickly and easily suppressed these guards, temporarily holding them back. Colton told his sister and niece to go upstairs to take refuge, while he would stay on the ground floor and risk it all. In the meantime, the two intruders had also broken down the door and gotten inside. While one guy was standing there dazed, the protagonist suddenly appeared, using his handgun to take him out cleanly with a shot through the neck. The other one didn't fare much better, getting jumped and grabbed by the neck. As the two struggled, the gun pointed straight up, and a series of gunshots rang out. The sister upstairs had to dance around to dodge the bullets. Luckily, her ancestors were carrying her on their backs, so she was only grazed on the arm. Downstairs, Colton knocked the opponent's gun away and started landing a flurry of blows on him, not missing a single one. He moved quickly and attacked him, then smashed his head against the edge of a table, sending him to the promised land. Upstairs, little Haley was terrified by the sound of gunfire. Immediately, she dialed 911 for the federal police. At that moment, the police chief picked up the phone because he was the chief of this area. Through Haley's phone line, he could hear the gunshots and knew he couldn't hide this anymore. Besides, he was also feeling a pang of conscience, so he decided to turn back and help the protagonist. After all, it's never too late to turn back, and knowing that this time he might not return, he called his son at home to hear his voice one last time. Old man Garcia outside called on the radio, but when his two subordinates didn't answer, his blood pressure dropped. He ordered all his forces to launch a full-scale assault inside, two attacking from the front and two flanking from the back, breaking in simultaneously. Realizing there were too many of them, 4 against 1, you'll get hurt even if you're not crippled. And moreover, his gun was almost out of ammo. Colton had no choice but to risk it and rushed to the second floor to wait for a chance to counterattack. At that moment, the police chief had also arrived, wearing a bulletproof vest to settle the score. Inside, the boss tried his best to persuade Colton to hand over the hard drive, after which he would burn the house down and turn all 3 of them into a midnight barbecue. However, Colton might be handsome, but he's not stupid. He saw right through his plot and told his sister and niece to quickly climb out the window and leave, while he would stay behind to hold off this herd of brutes. Seeing no movement from the protagonist, the restless boss ordered his men to shoot up through the ceiling. Luckily, the sister and little Haley had already escaped the area. Seeing that the mother and daughter were safe, the protagonist no longer had anything holding him back and resolved. Either I don't die, or all of you die with me. Hearing their footsteps approaching, Colton burst through the door from the inside. His AK ran out of ammo right at that moment, so he had no choice but to risk it, kick the door open, and immediately neutralize one guy. He used him as a human shield, then snatched his gun and jumped down to attack the guy on the lower floor. Colton kicked the door in for close-quarters combat, and with just a few basic moves, he knocked the gun out of his hand. The guy upstairs who had just been knocked out by Colton's door kick was now waking up from his daze. While Colton was grappling with the other guy, he rushed in and stabbed him in the side. Colton immediately entered berserk mode, no longer holding back against any of these little punks. He went on a 1 versus 2 rampage, beating them to a bloody pulp like a jungle king that had just escaped its cage. Every blow was a fatal one. It was quite unlucky for these guys to run into a furious beast. Outside, the mother and daughter quickly ran to the shed. Suddenly, old man Garcia was standing ominously behind them, restraining them and saying, "I only need one hostage. The other one has to die." The police chief suddenly appeared and tossed the boss right in the stomach, ending his drug-dealing career right there. Just when you thought the police chief had turned over a new leaf, greed resurfaced. He also wanted the hard drive to rob the bank accounts. Who knew that Colton would appear like a god, putting 2 shots into his chest to send him to Nirvana? However, this guy had a pre-prepared bulletproof vest, so it didn't do anything. He was about to grab his gun, but was stopped by the protagonist's foot. At this point, he didn't strike, but instead gave him 2 choices for his crimes. 1. Handcuff himself and turn himself in, or 2. Have a gunfight with him like real men. After some thought, the 2 looked at each other for a long time without blinking, gazing at each other with sincere eyes. The police chief then drew his gun to attack, but that was his last chance to turn over a new leaf. Just like that, Colton sent him on his way, and finally, everything was over. Colton handed the hard drive to the mother and daughter and said his goodbyes. He and his iron horse rode off to somewhere with no destination. From then on, the legend of Special Forces soldier Colton remained a source of terror for the gangsters of Mexico. Alright, that's the end of the movie. What did you all think of the film? Please leave a comment below the video. See you all in the newest videos.